Chapter 4. No Vacation. I've heard kids complain about how fast their summer vacation flies by, and adults bemoan how short their weekends are. They have no idea how quickly the days can pass when it's an army furlough during wartime. Everything was amplified, each moment significant in its insignificance, but the brief time at home cemented my feelings for Elaine, and I was determined to come back and make her my wife. The feelings must have been mutual because this time she went with me to the train station to see me off. I waved goodbye for a long time and then set my jaw for another long journey to the East Coast. Same boring trip, different destination. This time it was the North Atlantic coast. I spent very little time before being shipped out of what's called the asshole of the world, Newport Beach, Newport News, Virginia, the port of embarkment. The dock was built in the lowland area, and you boarded the ship by walking on planks in the mud up to your knees. My cruise ship to Europe was one of 106 Liberty ships in our convoy that included 2 oil tankers, but no armored escort. Liberty ship. What a joke. There was absolutely nothing liberating about the floating sardine can. Making the passage across the Atlantic with me were 500 fellow soldiers jammed on board like cardboard cartons on a freighter. We slept in rotating shifts on a 12 by 48 room with bunks stacked 6 high and just enough space to turn around. If anyone above you got seasick, you better not have your head out of the bunk, or at least be able to pull it back in a big hurry. I suppose it bears mention that a lot of the men did get seasick on the trip because of the stench. However, it was not from the reeking odor of unwashed bodies, clothing that hadn't been changed for days, or woefully inadequate sanitation. This was something else entirely. They couldn't take the smell of the food that was cooking. The ship was loaded down with sea rations, but the men were not given any of their foodstuffs. Instead, they were served some kind of horrible-smelling stuff from a big cauldron. A lot of men got sick from just smelling it on an empty stomach. None of them would have touched it because, as one guy said, no one knows what the hell it is. Either I had a cast-iron stomach or I was still hungry, growing boy, because I ate it. I didn't puke, retch, or even feel nauseous once on the entire trip. Although we dog faces were supposed to eat culinary slop and sleep in shifts, some of the men aboard did receive better treatment. Along for the ride were 128 Air Corps pilots, elite officers who ate well and slept in more comfortable quarters, while we dog faces enjoyed a more simple life. Not many soldiers complained about the inequity, though. The air raids those pilots will run and the bombs those boys will drop might someday take out a gunnery battery position and save your life, a bunkmate stated empathetically one day. I nodded in agreement, never considering the possibility that those same pilots might accidentally drop some of those bombs on me at the same time. I spent 21 miserable days on board that cramped and crowded vessel. No showers, no exercise, no entertainment, and certainly no contact from home. But we did have an overabundant supply of anxiety and rumors. Every few days we'd get word that a German sub had attacked the convoy and taken out a ship or 2. We all speculated on who would be next. A few men wondered aloud about the best course of action. Would it be if a boat got hit by a torpedo? I won't kid you. Of course I imagined what it would be like to have a hole blown on the side of your ship, knowing that we were going down, but I never expressed my fears in actual words. I thought to talk about it was to jinx us and make it happen. Then one idiot from Texas tried to confide in me and drawled, "Sure do wish I knew if y'all will be next. Do you think drowning or burning's a worser way to die, Johnson?" My cold, silent reaction shut him up. We didn't know our destination, but when we neared the Rock of Gibraltar, the convoy split. Most of the ships headed northwest to England, their human cargo destined to become part of the D-Day invasion on the beaches of Normandy. My ship, one of about 35, headed due east into the Mediterranean, bound for Casablanca, Morocco, and North Africa. The Mediterranean Sea was breathtakingly beautiful, but I couldn't fully appreciate the view. We weren't exactly on a sightseeing vacation. We just counted our blessings because the seas were crawling with German subs, and this particular part of the trip had been uneventful. We disembarked when we had learned on what we had learned in grade school was called the Dark Continent. We set up camp, living in a small African city made entirely out of canvas tents. I don't remember a lot of that camp, but I do remember the first bit of advice new arrivals got was amusing. "Don't put your shoes outside the tent. The locals steal them," a sergeant warned. One guy in an adjacent tent ignored the advice and found out the hard way. The next morning, his boots were indeed gone. Like the saying goes, Army life is weeks of boredom, punctuated by moments of chaos and terror. I was determined to follow my mother's advice about not trying to be a hero, but one day I was so bored I actually decided to volunteer for a special detail. At roll call, it was announced that our commander needed several tall men for a special mission. Being 6'3", I certainly qualified, so on a lark I raised my hand. Within 2 weeks, I found myself, along with several hundred other vertically gifted volunteers, becoming a tiny part of the great historical event. I was one of the honor guards to meet the motorcade containing President Franklin Roosevelt, English Prime Minister Winston Churchill, and other famous dignitaries as they arrived in Casablanca for one of those strategic secret meetings that helped us win the war. As these great men, in whose hand my fate and future of the world lay, I drove by in their armored cars. For some strange reason, I kept thinking something my mother had once told me. You're just as good as everyone else, Gerard. Never forget that they put their pants on the same way you do. That memorable duty set off without a hitch, but back on camp things started happening. Orders arrived. We were shipping out. Relieved to at least be doing something, the men eagerly hopped aboard troop trains. Destination Oran, North Africa. Almost immediately upon arrival in Oran, we were ordered on board a filthy, stench-filled English ship board for Naples, Italy. Another one of my mother's sayings popped in my head. Everything's relative. That rusty piece of junk made the ship I had ridden across the Atlantic seem like the Queen Mary. When we happily disembarked in Naples, we were told our mission: replace and reinforce troops of the exhausted and depleted United States Army 36th Infantry Division. I secretly congratulated myself. I was being posted to the sunny southern Italy. Boy, was I mistaken. It was early December, cold, rainy, and downright miserable. The weather took its toll on us. Most of the 36th was comprised of Texas boys, and they had suffered from the cold even more than I did. It was awful because, worst of all, I had too much time to think. Unable to fight off my depression one night, I took out a pencil and paper and wrote what I thought might be my last letter home. December 3rd, 1943. Dear Mother, Dan, Leroy, Carol, and Alice, I'm dropping you a few lines to say that I hope you all had a wonderful Christmas and a Happy New Year. I'm still in Italy. So far, not much is happening here, except that the weather is miserable. How's the weather there? I suppose you're getting lots of snow. I sure would like to be there to make a snowman and eat some of those great Christmas cookies. Please greet everyone there for me. I miss you all and hope and pray that you will spend the next holiday season together. Love, Gerard.